Hello everyone, my name's Pete McLean. I'm a business advisor at Bright Red Triangle. Bright Red Triangle is part of the university where we help people run and start their own business. So if any of you have your business idea or are currently running a business, please get in touch. We're here to help you out. But today we're going to talk about project management. Hopefully I'm going to give you a few tips on how to run a project. We're just going to do this over the next 10 or so minutes. Project management is a huge subject, so if you are interested in researching around the subject or diving into any of the things we're going to speak about today in more detail, we will be sharing some links and other resources that you can look into. So, project management is absolutely everywhere. Whether you're putting together something, maybe moving flat, that is a project in itself, or creating a huge event, that's a project. But if you look into your lives or into the professional world, project management is everywhere. So if any of you fancy becoming project managers, it's highly likely you'll probably get a job. So project management is absolutely everywhere. In project management, you might have heard of the Gantt chart. Henry Gantt in 1910 started coining the phrase project management, but as you can probably imagine, it's moved on a fair bit since then. But interestingly, still on a daily basis, we use what is called a Gantt chart, and we'll go into that in a little bit more detail in a few minutes. So what is a project? Well, a project is something that you do once to solve a particular problem, and that's the best way we can define it. There's lots of definitions out there, but the key thing is the word once, so you're doing it on a one-off, and you're solving a problem. So for example, if we took something like a manufacturing business, they may have a specific project to test something, or test, let's say, a motorbike against certain criteria. That could be seen as a project, but actually moving forward and manufacturing the bike wouldn't be defined as a project. That would just be day-to-day business. So that's the best way to think about what a project is. So if you're doing it once, you're going to define the life cycle of the project. This is the things we're going to cover today. We're going to talk about project management with regards to defining, planning, executing, and closing out. These are the 4 stages of project management that I'd like to discuss with you today. So defining is the first one, and probably I would suggest the most important one with regards to running an effective project. So what does defining a project mean? Ultimately, it's about scoping the project. What is the project all about? And hopefully you'll have some material with regards to your projects that will outline what the project is about. And actually this probably happens on a fairly regular basis at the university. You're given module guidebooks and project guidebooks on what the university and your lecturers are looking for. So I would suggest you pay particular attention to that, really understanding what the scope of the project is. Defining in your teams, we've obviously done some resources on how to run an effective team. In the defining stage of a project, again, extremely important to work out who you're working with and what roles they're doing. And even if your team hasn't quite settled and you're not sure who's working on what, it's actually quite a good step to decide what roles are required to deliver this project and mapping them out. Looking into the value proposition, what value is this project going to deliver? Who are the stakeholders in the project that you're running? Who's involved in the project? It might not just be people at Edinburgh Napier University, it might not just be your team, but you might have some external factors. You might be working on a project with external stakeholders that you're running the project for that are looking for the outcome. Possible risks. At the definition stage, it's very important to just really sit there and analyse what the possible risks to the project could be. And if you analyse them at this stage, you can therefore maybe plan for them in the next stage. it's important to discuss the target project benefits. So what's the benefits of this project once it's delivered? Budget, this is maybe more out in industry, but looking at the budget, and often it's how a project is defined by its success or failure. You often hear in the news projects have gone over budget, building the new fourth rail bridge, road bridge, did it go over budget? And it's quite often a definition whether it's either delivered on budget or on time. And the tolerance, what level can you push the project to define a successful project? What variances are there that you can take? So defining the project is really about you sitting there and discussing as a group and really working out. And if you do this stage, you're all going to be on the same page and working towards the same goal. So next stage is the planning stage, again to be done as a team, and it's really just important to work out the timeline. And I often find the best way, it may sound a little bit strange, but to work out the timeline is maybe starting at the end. What's the end goal and working back from there. You don't necessarily need to use dates to begin with. You can use just weeks or months. But I would suggest starting at the end of the project and working back rather than starting at the beginning, trying to work forward and delivering it that way. Working out the team, who's doing what, very important. And what I would maybe suggest at this stage, in the planning stage, is actually getting in a room and getting some post-it notes and writing down what the project means to the people in the room, some of their concerns, worries, how they're going to deliver, kind of a sort of brainstorming session, and then getting them onto one big wall and trying to organize them into themes. And this will help you plan your tasks and actually might identify who might be the best person to take the relevant themes forward. So as I mentioned earlier on, Gantt chart, some of you might have seen that online, but ultimately it's mapping out the tasks that have been highlighted against time. And you don't necessarily need to use a Gantt chart. They can be a bit overwhelming, but you can also use just a simple calendar and even Google. You can set up a specific calendar for the project and share it between your team and clearly identify what tasks need to be completed in a timely manner and agree. And you can also show that those tasks have been completed online, so you don't always have to be on other people's back checking whether they've done it or not, as long as you keep it up to date. But one thing I would say with regards to a Gantt chart or a calendar, more often than not, it's set up at the beginning of a project and completely forgotten about. A Gantt chart or a calendar is a living thing during the planning process and actually during the project process. So when I mean living thing, it's revisit it all the time, update it, change it as required, but at least you have a kind of blueprint for your time. And put your names against the tasks, a bit of accountability, and be very clear who's doing what and when, and agree as a group who's doing what and when, and it's much more likely to get done. So at the bottom there I've written communication. If you don't communicate, your project's going to fail. It's kind of as simple as that. So I would suggest at the early stages as well, agreeing a communication method, whether that's emails, WhatsApp group, text messages, but just a way that you can easily communicate between your group, who's doing what, who's having problems, do people need help. And I can guarantee you, if you keep the communication up, your project will normally go without too many problems. So now it's time to execute the project. If we're looking at executing the project, one of the first things that normally cause frustration within the groups is staying in your lane. And what I mean by that is if you are given a task to do, try and keep on the task that you're given or have been chosen for or have volunteered for. Now that doesn't mean you don't give feedback to each other. That might be in a regular meeting that you have, but it's very important to stay in what you've been given to avoid arguments or interference, or actually just letting the person do the job. Regular checks, all the way through the execution phase as you carry out the project. Make sure you're checking in regularly, and don't be scared to say you're having an issue or having a problem, because you're there as a team to sort of help each other out. So it's good to voice these concerns. If you bottle it up and leave it to the end, quite often that leads to a project delay or problems when there's no time to fix them. And visit the plan all the way through. You've spent a lot of time hopefully on putting a plan together. Spend time visiting that plan and trying to keep to the plan that you've already put together, and that'll help you execute in a timely, effective manner. And be honest with each other. There's going to be a bumpy ride, there's going to be a few problems as you go through the project, but make sure you're being honest with each other. If you're struggling or you're having challenges, try and work them out as a group. So closing out, finishing the project, it's important to check against the objectives that you've set out at the beginning and the goals you've set out at the beginning. Have you achieved what you set out to achieve? It's very important that you don't just sort of walk away from the project at the end, and you check, certainly in a professional world, that you have achieved what you wanted to achieve for your clients. Give feedback to the clients. Always good to keep in contact, or always good to keep in contact with your group, and then do a slight debrief with the team. Make sure everyone feeds back into what worked well, what didn't work well. And actually, certainly at university, that's a very important phase of the learning, a bit of reflection on what has gone on, how it's worked and what's worked well. And obviously, most importantly, make sure you go out for a few beers, have a party at the end because you have finished the project. But hopefully you have put the party into the timeline and the project plan. So maybe there's a wee bit of budget there to spend on a party. But bottom line is, with project management, is communication with everyone, including stakeholders, and you should have an effective project management tool there. So again, it's a very quick overview, a little 10 minutes just to highlight some things, get you thinking about things. But if you do need any extra resources or would like to reach out to us to discuss anything further, or if you've got any problems, please do so. But we will also be posting lots of resources with regards to project management, which we hope you will use. So best of luck with your project, and that's all from me. Thank you.